The night it all began was cold enough to make the city feel cruel. Streetlights flickered like tired eyes, and the air carried the heavy silence of people who had stopped expecting anything good to happen. In that quiet, unseen corner of the world, one small act was about to ripple through a broken life in a way no one could have imagined. Sometimes, it is not loud moments that change us forever, but the soft ones we almost miss. Before we go deeper into this story, pause for a moment. If you believe that kindness still matters in a world that often feels heartless, if you believe in second chances and quiet miracles, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach hearts that are still searching for light. The man at the center of this story was named Daniel, though very few people remembered his name anymore. To the city, he was just another shadow sitting on the edge of a sidewalk, wrapped in a thin jacket that did nothing to protect him from the winter wind. Once, years ago, he had been someone else entirely. He had been a hard-working son, a loving husband, and a father who believed the future was something you could build with your own hands. But life has a way of breaking people slowly, almost politely, until one day they realize they are no longer who they used to be. Daniel's fall had not come from a single mistake, but from a series of quiet losses. First, the factory where he worked shut down without warning. Then the savings disappeared faster than he expected, eaten away by rent, bills, and desperation. His wife tried to stay strong, but fear changes people, and love does not always survive uncertainty. She left, taking their young daughter with her, promising it was only temporary. Temporary turned into permanent silence. Phone calls stopped. Letters went unanswered. Daniel was left alone with his guilt, his anger, and a growing sense that he had failed. At the one job that mattered most, protecting his family. Days turned into months, months into years. Daniel searched for work endlessly, but rejection has a way of draining hope. Each interview that ended with a polite smile and a promise to call back carved a little more out of him. Eventually, he lost his apartment. Then he lost his pride. Sleeping on park benches and abandoned doorsteps became normal. Hunger became a companion. Loneliness became permanent. What hurt the most was not the cold or the hunger, but the way people looked through him, as if he no longer existed. Some crossed the street to avoid him. Others stared for a second, then quickly looked away, as if acknowledging his pain might somehow make it contagious. Daniel stopped expecting kindness. He stopped believing it was meant for people like him. On that particular night, his body was shaking uncontrollably. The wind cut through him like a blade, and his hands were numb. He had not eaten since the morning before. His thoughts drifted to his daughter, now probably a teenager. He wondered if she still remembered his face or if he had faded into a distant memory, like an old photograph tucked away in a drawer. That thought hurt more than the cold. Across the street, a small cafe was closing for the night. The warm glow from its windows felt almost cruel, a reminder of everything Daniel no longer had. He sat with his head down, trying not to think, trying not to feel. That was when the door opened again. A woman stepped out, pulling her coat tighter around her. She was ordinary in every way, the kind of person you would pass without a second glance. Her name was Emma, and she had just finished a long shift. She was tired, her feet aching, her mind full of worries of her own. She had bills to pay, a sick mother to care for, and dreams she kept postponing because life demanded too much from her. She was not rich, not powerful, not particularly confident. She was simply human. As Emma walked toward her car, she noticed Daniel sitting there. At first, she did what most people did. She hesitated. She told herself she was exhausted, that it was late, that it was not her responsibility. She took a few steps forward, trying to ignore the small voice inside her that refused to stay quiet. That voice reminded her of her father, who had once told her that kindness was not about changing the whole world, but about changing one moment for one person. Emma stopped walking. She turned back. Daniel noticed her approaching and instinctively tensed. Experience had taught him to expect rejection or worse, cruelty. He lowered his eyes, preparing himself for nothing. But Emma did not walk past. She knelt down slightly and placed a warm paper bag and a cup into his shaking hands. Inside was food from the cafe, fresh and still warm, and a hot drink that sent steam into the cold air. She did not lecture him. She did not ask questions. She did not look at him with pity. She simply smiled, a real smile, the kind that says you matter. Then she stood up and walked away, disappearing into the night. That was it. No grand speech, no dramatic rescue, just a simple act of kindness. But for Daniel, it felt like something inside him cracked open. His hands trembled as he held the warm cup, not just from the heat, but from the shock of being seen. As he ate, tears streamed down his face, mixing with the cold air. He cried not because of the food, but because someone had treated him like a human being again. In that moment, the weight of years of invisibility lifted just enough for him to breathe. That night, Daniel slept differently. For the first time in a long while, he felt a small spark of hope. It was fragile, almost frightening, but it was there. He woke up the next morning with a strange determination. He decided that if one stranger could believe he was worth kindness, then maybe he was worth saving after all. The days that followed were not magically easy. Daniel still struggled. He was still homeless. He was still hungry at times, but something had shifted. He started going to shelters again, places he had avoided out of shame. He accepted help he once thought he did not deserve. He began volunteering at a soup kitchen, not because he was strong, but because helping others reminded him of that night and kept the spark alive. Weeks turned into months. Daniel found a transitional housing program. He found part-time work through a local charity. The pay was small, but it was honest. Each step forward felt like climbing a mountain, but he kept going. On the hardest days, he remembered the warmth of that cup and the look in Emma's eyes. It reminded him that his story was not over. Years later, Daniel stood in a small community center, now clean-shaven and standing tall. He had rebuilt his life piece by piece. He had steady work, a modest apartment, and most importantly, he had reconnected with his daughter. The reunion had been painful and healing all at once, filled with tears, regret, and forgiveness. He never blamed anyone but himself, but he also learned to forgive himself, something he once thought impossible. Daniel began speaking at shelters and community events, sharing his story. He always emphasized the same truth. It was not money that saved him, not luck, not even opportunity. It was one simple act of kindness that reminded him he was still human. He never saw Emma again. He did not know her name, but her kindness lived on in every life he touched, in every meal he served, in every word of encouragement he offered to someone standing where he once stood. If this story is touching your heart right now, if you feel that quiet emotion rising inside you, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps spread stories that remind us who we are at our best. Before this story ends, there is one special request. Please comment below with a single word or sentence about what kindness means to you, or share a moment when a small act changed your life. Your words might be the hope someone else is searching for. Because the truth is simple and powerful. You never know how close someone is to giving up. You never know how heavy their invisible burden is. And you never know how far a single ordinary act of kindness can travel. Sometimes it does not just change a day. Sometimes it changes a life forever.